All right, time has come. I'm going to say to incant as witches and wizards do, although we already did. But so what the hell was I going to say? Yeah, okay. So I'm Daniel Dubois,
I'm Michaela Stone.
and we're your hosts for the Think Like a Wizard podcast. Welcome to season 4, episode 4, Community. Yeah, a lot of stuff this week. That's why I'm a bit off there, and also lost in my thoughts a little bit. But I couldn't help but notice after doing my quality check for the last recording, this fits like right at how we finished the last episode, going from what we were at, because we went from your relationship with spirits to now your community you want to build.
Right.
So it's about still relationships continuing. And for those of you who remember, right, a spell for the most part before every episode. And it was my turn this week. And as you might guess, my spell was about building community. And it was a bit of an interesting journey. It was the typical, of giving of energy. And this piggybacks off of the clarity spell that Michaela did the week before. And it was interesting to feel so isolated, to build community. But I think it was to build up the desire for community as well in the spell. So that when the spell was actually done, that desire was actually there, like at least on a subconscious level to bring it together. And also, there was a lot to that spell. Like I had told Michaela it was just going to be me and Blue. For those of you who remember Blue the dragon that hangs on with the podcast. But it was me. It was the angel, of course. That's part of because this was a scales and feathers magic. So there was that angel. There was Blue. Then there was the mama dragon, who I wasn't expecting to show up, but she was there. There were 3 or 4 other dragons who I didn't really know who they were, or at least they weren't identified. And then there was Lilith and Hecate. So continuing on from the spell Michaela did, they joined in this one. It was pretty interesting to bind society, to bind a community. I had to bind myself, but not just magically, but also I had to tie myself up in a more symbolic fashion. But I was actually tied, hands and everything, to do the spell till the spell was over, and even a little bit just to make sure everything set. Even in the end, I was actually bound by Lilith and Hecate until the spell was over and everything was back to where it needed to be. So it was interesting. It's a very, very, very interesting spell. Right, my brain's all over the place right now. So here's another thing to bring up. So, because I wanted to talk about these spells, like not just the fact that the spell we did, but we've hit a threshold. Because not just me and Michaela doing this. I don't know who the other people are, but there's other people. And just so people know, we've hit a critical mass, if you will, of spells. There's no going back.
Agreed.
So we've hit, there's no, like, the opportunity to disrupt is gone. Anyone who had any intentions of disrupting anything that was being done to release all these things into the world again for this time, the opportunity's passed. And so, in a way, right now we're not a super popular podcast, so that worked in our favor. We were actually able to get work done that needed to be done, but it's not like we hid, right? We kept posting the episodes and kept recording them, saying what we were doing. But now it's too late. Or muhahaha. It's now on its path. What started?
I think you might want to find something different to say other than
Yes.
it's too late. It's
Yes.
more just that we've moved on from that point of vulnerability
Yes.
to a place of you can't really say certainty, but the path is moving.
Well,
We're in
yeah,
action,
yeah. So
in action rather than inaction.
right, but more specifically, right? Even if we were to stop, there's enough in motion that someone
Yeah.
could pick it up, or people can do it for themselves. We're still going to be doing stuff because it makes it smoother and easier. It'll just be harder if other people do it, but it's still there. The process is now in place. Yeah, that's the
We also have our own things to
yeah,
work on. So we do really well sort of working in conjunction with each other. I think
right,
that's been a whole heap of fun since we started
yeah,
working together. It's just like, oh, okay, this is actually better in community, right?
mhm,
Better with two of you rather than solo. And
right,
in witchcraft, apart from covens,
mhm,
people tend to do a lot of their work on their own.
right,
And then you discover a community, and it's like, oh, hey, this is a whole new level of something. And just like in mundane life, when you're in a community, however big it is, you get more perspectives and you
right,
get more input, sort of little missing pieces. It's like doing a jigsaw puzzle with a few people rather than on your own. It
yeah,
goes faster if somebody's helping you. And that's sort of the imagery that I'm getting for what we're doing anyway, is we're sort of working on different ends of this puzzle and it's coming together quite quickly. Um, but we don't have the box for the picture.
right. You know what I was going to say? Like, so one of the big takeaways from the spell for anyone who ends up coming across its effect is that it's going to be easier to put communities together. It's like just like when we did the first spell, right? We released new downloads, new synchronicities, new forms of, well, all that stuff appropriate for this time. Well, this is kind of a similar concept in that you're going to have it's going to be interesting it's going to be more easy to find out your people, your tribe, if you will. It'll be easier to find them.
And find them in a good way.
Yes.
Find common ground that's the ground you want rather than the ground you think you have to have. And this is all part of this big reveal that's going on
Mhm.
right now. You can't not see it, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And things are just falling away, and new layers are being revealed all the time. And so that shifts what you need to bring to a community. What is your community based on?
Yeah.
What do you want from the community? What does the community want from you? What can you contribute? All of these are questions that you're going to ask differently now.
Yes. It's funny because so I've also been I want to use the term dogged, but that's not right. It's just more because I'm tired. But it's so my dreams have been basically talking about the fact that it's not that necessarily your tribe is going to be perfectly in agreement with you, but it's going to be that you guys are the complements to each other that you need. So you,
Mm.
like Mikhail says, you bring in your own perspective. So the advice I would say for anyone who ends up being the beneficiary of the spell is that don't look a gift horse in the mouth, as it were. Work with people for what they can do and not what you want them to do.
That's a very good distinction
Yeah.
because, and I think this is part and parcel of where we're at now. The illusions are shattering
Mm,
all over the place. Like you got to wear some really thick shoes on your feet to not tread on all this broken glass
right.
everywhere. Um, there's so much that we want to believe that we used to believe that we always thought was true, and now see it isn't. And okay, you can allow yourself, like I guess cosmically speaking, on that
Mm,
timeline, you can allow yourself 5 minutes to sort of mourn the loss of the illusion, and then you got to pick
right.
yourself up and figure out where you go from here. And this proverb as well as I do because you'll have heard it from the same source. But if you want to go fast, go
Yes.
alone. If you want to go far, go together. And
Hmm.
that's where you can do your own work for some sort of, I don't want to say quick results because that's kind of cheapens the sound of things. But if you need to get something rolling now, do it
Hmm.
yourself. And if you need to get something rolling that's bigger than you, then do it in community. But choose your community well based on as little illusion as possible.
Right. That's the thing, right? And
Mhm.
so part of the yeah, that's part of the tools this spell will facilitate. Or I should say, like, you know what? I want to kind of explain it better than that, right? I've been thinking about it because you had used the analogy, right? We push a boulder and then we let it go, so we don't have to keep powering it. And that's true. Nothing we're doing right now, like it's all stuff built in. It just like it's like someone had already set up dominoes, to use the analogy, to go ahead from boulders, and then we're just the ones pushing the first domino, and then the domino's going. Once that's done, we don't have to do anything. That's all we're actually doing is just pushing that first domino. It just so happens because this is the universe and the cosmos that it takes a little bit more effort than just pushing a domino. But the thing is, we're just setting it in motion. We're not maintaining it. We're not the ones who built the thing that we set in motion. We're just the people who are designated, if you will, to do the task of pushing that first domino because of what it takes to push the first domino.
Yeah, that's a good explanation. I like that.
Well, part of the reason why I thought about it that way too is because I was thinking about there's still a trail, right? And that kind of made me think of, all right, we've been nerdy on this podcast enough times that so I've been watching an anime. Anyways, not again, not the most deep or most in depth, but this guy ends up building a town and he puts because it's some people recognize the term isekai, basically meaning someone came from regular Earth to this magical kingdom, and he ended up basically making his roads something like a communication system. If you're standing on certain parts of the road, you can activate a spell that lets you talk to someone else at a distance. It kind of made me think of that. The spell isn't exactly like that, but has similar concepts that'll make it easier to find the people you're looking for. But it kind of had an imagery in my head of all these paths are built. And even with the domino falling, right, you can still follow the dominoes back to its origin, or you can go to different designs made by the dominoes and then find your people that way. Something like that. Yeah.
Comes to my mind is ley lines.
Yes.
That's and the reason, just in case somebody listening to us isn't aware of this, the reason cats are usually associated with witches is because they are sensitive to the ley lines and can help you tap into them. It doesn't mean everybody has to have a cat, and it doesn't mean every cat you have is your familiar or any of that stuff. That's where folklore and reality meet. But the ley lines are that kind of channel where if you are adept enough to tap into something like that, ooh, now you just jumped into the fast lane, right? You're in the ride share lane.
Yes. Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because that actually clicked something and it might actually have to do with the communication. Ley lines might actually be practical here. Yes. See, again, I haven't said it in a couple episodes, but this is why you're the co-host. Because
That's
yeah,
that
because that
that's that piece of bringing
yeah,
in the other jigsaw piece, right?
yeah. Because actually, I haven't thought about ley lines in a while. But yeah, like there's yeah, they might actually be. Are they sort of? I'm getting sort of involved in this. There's a component that has to do with ley lines to this.
I think ley lines are always involved.
Yeah.
The question
Well,
whether it's
yeah.
intentionally or not,
Mm,
but something that comes to mind, as often does in these podcasts, like I get downloads all the
mm,
time while I'm doing this, and what I just got was to let you know, if the listener,
mm,
if you're not aware already, the reason you want to minimize the amount of electricity you have around you and your proximity to electrical things when you're sleeping, having a TV in the bedroom, for
mm,
example, seriously, bad idea. But the reason these things are not great is because it messes with your access to ley lines.
mm,
It messes with your aura, your magnetic presence, and how you're functioning with that. So if you're continually messing with it by having electronics in the bedroom, having electronics around
mm.
you all the time, and maybe even living close to power lines or something,
Right.
well, that they are going to, depending on the strength of the ley lines near you, but really they're going to interfere. I would say even with strong lines, they're going to interfere. So it's something to bear in mind. If you find that you're getting thwarted when you're trying to do something, in a magical sense, you're trying
Mm,
to make something happen, and it's just like the oomph isn't there, the spark isn't there, what's happening? If your intention is clear and you know what you're looking for, you know what you're working on, you might want to assess what you have around you. And, for example, I don't have access to my phone overnight. I always tell people, if you want to message me at night, knock yourself out, go for it. I'm not going to see it till the morning because I don't want that interference.
Right.
And I would not have a TV in the bedroom, like ever. That's just no. That's a lot of interference.
Yeah. It's funny now that you mentioned ley lines. I am now, I mean, I get it. We were doing it according to things had to be revealed at certain times. But the fact that we haven't discussed ley lines on this podcast yet, that
And I
I'm
did not have it. I did not have it in my
yeah,
mind before we started talking, but I'm sure the listeners got it by now. We don't plan these conversations.
right.
We simply start and they go where they're going to go. And
Yeah.
I get things come to me that you need to mention this, you need to say that. Okay, you're not going to get this, and the thread kind of disappears.
Mm,
That doesn't happen too often, thankfully. But the ley lines that they've come up a few times for me recently, and
yeah.
then as we started talking, it was like, okay, here they are, ley lines. Let's go.
Yeah. My to borrow the colloquialism, my gastids are flabbered. But yeah, no, I'm still kind of stuck on that we haven't mentioned ley lines before. I mean, I understand not mentioning places that are rumored to be mystical hotspots, but I don't know. I figured ley lines would have come up.
Well, you would, yeah, you would think so. And I mean, anybody that's been looking into energetic spots,
Hmm.
Arizona, anyone?
Mm,
Sedona?
yeah, Sedona, yeah.
It's famous for this. And if you look at the areas in Arizona, like what's the population like? There's some very specific people that gravitate there, or
Hmm.
at least there have been. I wonder how that's going to change.
You know what? I don't know because there was someone who I used to. He passed this last year. Uh, some people might know, listening to this, might know who he is. Christopher O'Brien. He did a whole bunch of books about Sedona, if I'm not mistaken. He did his biggest book was it was about cattle mutilation. It was like 1,600 pages or something like that. Where he did like he was the guy who said that if you have a theory about cattle mutilation, I've got the proof to back you up. I've got the evidence to back you up. And he says, if you want aliens, I've got evidence for that. If you want it's the government, I've got stuff for that. If you want it's a cult, I've got stuff for like that. If you want it's a natural phenomena, I got stuff like that. If you want it's an animal, I got stuff like that.
Interesting.
Yeah. But he did one too, Chasing the Trickster. And but he did tours, I think, in Sidonia, if I'm not mistaken. But that's why when you said I knew it right away, Sidonia, which also reminds me of something I'd seen online. Someone had said, "Why are there no dinosaur ghosts?" And I was thinking, well, apparently in Sidonia,
Well, who says there are no dinosaur
yeah, well,
ghosts?
that's the other one too.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, okay, here's the illusion versus reality, right? When somebody asks a question like that, they have a very clear image in their mind as to what a dinosaur ghost looks like, what
Yes.
it would do, what it wouldn't do, how it would appear, where it would appear, etc., etc. Maybe it's not like that. Maybe you are surrounded by the thing that you're looking for, but you're looking in the wrong way. And holy smokes, that one just landed pretty strongly. That just think about that for a moment. And if you can take out pen and paper,
Mm,
not computer, pen and paper, pencil and paper, and just make a note, you might be looking for the thing in the wrong way. How
yeah.
else could you look for it? This is with all the things happening now and all the veils falling away and all the reveal going on, the one big takeaway from this is stop looking the way you've always looked and look a different way. There's another angle to come at. There's something you haven't tried yet. There's many things you haven't tried yet. And whatever that is, that's where to move to. And for some reason, my hands are doing all these circles, but it's
Mm,
it's like you need to completely shift your
right.
orientation when you're looking at this
Do a
thing. You
180.
got to go the other side. You got to go
Yeah.
the other side of the sun to look at this. This is not. it's not what you think it is.
Yeah. Yeah. Michaela's gestures is just basically telling you to turn around, kind of a thing.
Yes, I'm doing these circles, and I'm like, what am I doing this for?
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, it's not where you are right now. You need to take a different angle, and that's such an interesting piece, I think, because we tend to think that what we're looking at is it.
Yeah.
I know these things, therefore it is, but there's many truths, there's many perspectives. And the one you've got, I'm not talking Danielle specifically here.
Yeah.
The you is
Mm.
community, collective, right? And the perspective that you have is old now. It doesn't work anymore. It's kind of, it can take a nap while you go find something new because this isn't working anymore.
Yeah. And if you can take advantage of the spell Michaela had cast, because it was about clarity.
Yeah. And
Like,
when you think, here's something I've discovered in the past week too. Because, we say these things like, yeah, we know what we're talking about, but I assure you, we're getting reveals all the time.
yeah.
And one of the things I got was when you think you have your clarity, search deeper, ask
Yeah.
more, and don't assume that the first layer of clarity is it, because it isn't. You're going to bring judgment to that clarity and think you know what you're looking at. And I discovered this past week that is not actually the case. So learn from I'm not going to say my mistake, but my journey, and don't stop there, but keep looking.
Yes. Well, and it's fun too, because I've noticed that over the years where I think I have the answer, and then I'm like, no, no, there's something kind of sitting there in the back of my mind saying no, and then I explore it further, and it's like all these new layers you find, and they're very exciting because you thought you knew what it was, but now all these new possibilities open up to you.
Yeah. And the thing you thought it was starts to pale in
Yes.
comparison to the layers that you're now
Mm.
discovering.
And you
It's like,
wondered why, yeah. And
I
then you
found
wondered why that,
coal. I dug and I found coal.
yeah,
Keep digging. Oh my God, there's diamonds,
yes.
right? Like
You think the first
coal
layer,
is
yeah, you think the first layer you found was the goal you were looking for, but now once you've gone through and you found the deeper layers, you realize, oh, why did I ever think I should stop there when there's so much more, it's more richer when I go beyond just that surface level.
exactly.
Yeah, here's your metaphor right there. Look past the surface level, get your clarity. It's more than you thought it was. And yeah, plus also there's a lot of, I have an entourage today. I mean, I technically have an entourage all the time, but now they're more dominant right now. And it's interesting. What was I going to say? So this is about community, and I know we'll get to it because that's how these things always work. Every time I review, it's always like oh, I thought we weren't heading there, but we did. We got there and we did everything. So I'm just going to go with whatever needs to be said is going to be said. And right now, it's about not being afraid to call out your community as well, to make them, but in a good way, not the be a pain in the ass to everyone and put them down, but actually to uplift them. If someone is like basically not using their full clarity, instead of accepting that from them, push them to do more or push them to want to do more. Inspire them, trying to find the right way to word it.
Inspiring is always a good thing if you
Yeah.
can do it, because it's something that's active but not forceful. You're there, you're putting it out there, but the person has the free will,
Yeah.
which we've often said is really important, the
Hmm.
free will and the choice to choose to do more. The other thing is, if you're having a reaction to someone's lack of activity, or even you think they're doing too much, like whatever your judgment is,
Mm.
and if you can put a label on it, then that's a judgment. So whatever your judgment is, stop for a second and just ask yourself, why do I have that issue? Where's that coming from? What does that mean? And look there first, because that's a great place to dig, to discover things, to get some more clarity for yourself. So on this journey, you're helping you all the way. You have to do that. It's not
Mm.
selfish. It's not any label you want to put on it. It's none of those things. It simply is.
Hmm.
You are the one being that's with you all the time, forever, from start to finish. And so, why would you not look after your own development as you go? So, ask questions whenever you come across. I view those like boulders in the road kind of thing. And if you're driving a car, you don't really want to come across a boulder in the
Right.
road. Even if it's not that big, it still can do some damage. So, if you see one of those things, and I would call judgment that, where you're labeling things.
Mhm.
Okay, why? Where's that coming from? What does it mean to you? And can you let it go? Like, there's lots of questions you can ask, more depth than I'm giving here, but do stop and take a look at it, not from a place of judgment, from a place of curiosity.
Mhm. And I was going to say too, so part of the idea of being in community, especially in this way, is that, using the boulder and the road thing, if you're driving and you're by yourself and there's an obstruction in the road, if you clear it, other people can drive through. And it's the same thing that even if you're not the first one there and there's like someone else was there first and they clear it, well, that lets you through too, as well. It's not just for their own benefit. So the idea is that your own improvement, your own uplifting will be of benefit to others. There is no better time in history right now to uplift yourself because it'll uplift other
Absolutely.
people.
Yeah. And it bringing human design into
Mm.
it right now. 70% of the world's population are either generators or manifesting generators. And what they have in common is the generator has the defined sacral center, which is your motor, it's your powerhouse, it's the place where you produce a whole heap of energy that lifts up the world when you are in alignment. When you're happy, people around you are happy. When you're effective and you're energetic, people around you feel that same way. And the converse is true. If you're stuck and miserable and just out of alignment, the people around you are going to feel that as well. So it is important. If you've got a 7 in 10 chance of being someone who can lift others up
Yeah,
just by being in alignment. So raising your own vibrations will bring other people up. There's no question. And we don't ever stay still. There's nothing stagnant.
right.
So either you're going up or you're going down. And you need to make a choice as to which that's going to be. And yes, there's a lot of challenges right now. Nobody's going to pretend there aren't. At least, probably nobody. I'm certainly not. There's
Right.
tons of challenges,
Mm.
but choose where you put your attention and where you let that flow. Because if you're sending it to something that you can't change, you can't affect in any way, then you kind of, we mentioned leaking energy before and
Yeah,
wasting it. It's like pouring oil onto the ground. Why? What did you do that for? Now you don't have it. Now it's no good.
yeah,
So be careful where you're putting your focus.
yeah. It's funny because Michaela asked me about how my week was before we came on, and it's like there's so much stuff going on, but I'm trying to think like, and I'm not trying to decide what comes on the podcast. It's just like every time I think about going down a certain route, it's like, no, that's not it. No, that's not it. But like there was tons of stuff like my dreams, especially after casting the spell, were like almost like an instruction manual. It's like if you're seeking something, find someone to nourish you. Someone in your community will be able to nourish you. So I'd have dreams of being fed food, and then that food brought wisdom and strength. And I'm like, okay, I got it. So like, and there's tons of dreams like that have been coming to me since I was prepping for this, or since the last recorded the last episode, so a week ago. So like, there's all kinds of stuff like that right now. So wouldn't surprise me if anybody listening to this is might also be starting to experience this themselves. But we are, like I said before, we've hit a critical mass. We're getting to the part where there's no hiding from things when you're awake, when you can feel what's going on. You have to be intentional in your not seeing things.
You've got to try hard,
Yeah.
honestly, not to see things. And yeah, I'm getting a lot of, sort of finger waving at
Mm.
me at the moment. But another thing that just came up was You can put down the false responsibility of needing to wake other people up
Right.
because we don't have to do that. It's not your responsibility. And frankly, if you think about the repercussions of that, you probably don't want that responsibility. I know I don't. I don't want to be bound or connected to somebody in that level of commitment, depth,
Right.
whatever, for however many lifetimes that takes. No, thank you. And nor would I have somebody do that with me because it's just you line yourself up for a lot of stuff doing that.
Yeah.
So you don't have to wake anyone. If the person is ready, they'll hear you and they're already awake. It's not your business to go waking people up. So if you're feeling a little evangelical about
Yeah.
it, I don't know who
Yeah.
this is for somebody. But if
Mm.
you're feeling a little bit like, oh, I got to get busy and I need to go and shake a few people, go make a cup of tea and have a seat, and don't do that to yourself. You,
Yeah.
you really don't need the hassle that would come with it.
Yeah. That's why, yeah. Oddly enough, the focus is on yourself. Not oddly enough, just so that you let other people grow into their place. So that you're taking up the space you need to take and not someone else's space. I think is the way to put it right now.
A community, a definition comes to me
Mm.
of a community is a group of people who are of similar direction and
Mhm.
supporting each other, but not requiring each other. You're not leaning on that other person. They're not a crutch, but they are a support. And there's two
Right.
very big differences there. I'm kind of enjoying these distinctions right now. This is fun. But yeah, the crutch is like I'm going to fall over if you take it away, whereas the
Mm.
support is I feel stronger with your input or your
Mhm.
presence, and that's community. That's what we're looking for here in community.
Well, that's the thing, right? So last episode, when Hecate said, "Welcome to the primordial magic," that's literally what this is. It's primordial. It's not the what you're planning out. It's what happens when you go with the flow of things. When you follow the way things, well, flow outwards. When you follow the river, when you follow gravity, when you follow it's those things. All you have to do is be there to help those things along, or when they get stuck. But things are going to go where they need to go, and you're along for the ride.
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I was worried that that phrasing might not like because we still have a certain responsibility. We're here for an experience, so we have agency.
Mhm.
But if we work with what's already at play, that's where we'll get our success.
Okay. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. It actually brings to mind a picture I saw yesterday. It was about an office, like a boardroom, and they were talking about design. And so the table is made of, I don't know, we'll call it granite for now. But then there's an equally much larger piece of granite hanging over the table that people were calling the slab of Damocles
Interesting.
because it was a
Okay.
large piece. Like it was like probably, I want to guess 6 feet, like in depth, and then was the size of the table. In the comment section, people were making jokes of, I bet those meetings don't take very long. They're probably quick and to the point, so people can get out of there.
Right.
Because such a big slab of granite sitting on top of just hanging there. I think it was a CGI picture if I really looked at it, but it was just interesting to see it as a decor, as an aesthetic,
Right.
because it brought up a lot of questions of who put this together. Why would you think hanging a giant slab of rock over top a meeting table would be productive?
But really, it would be. I mean, you'd want to get out of there, wouldn't you?
Yeah, don't want to mess around. We'll be in, we'll be out. We'll say what we need to do, and we're gone. Yeah, I don't know. Made me think about it, but yeah, right now it's not to be in anyone else's way. It's to support people when they're near you. You know, kind of like we use race cars, right? When you draft, because the car in front of you is already breaking the air. So when you get in, there's like a vacuum behind them, and
Hmm.
there's also your is it called drafting?
Yeah.
You kind of use that to lower your resistance. So, and if you have enough cars in the front, then you can even more cars can be behind. So yeah, so you do your thing, and then other people can learn from you and take advantage of what you're doing to help themselves. So we're helping each other by being ourselves. Hence the message of be yourself.
Yes. And, there's no need to push what you think the other person wants
Right.
on them either. If they require it, they'll find it. It's a
Yeah.
different way of doing things, right? And it's not transactional.
Right.
That's
Well, that's
something.
the thing, right? It's the natural consequences of your behavior. And even going back to the drafting analogy, you kind of get pulled into the vacuum anyways, depending
Right.
on what, so you kind of naturally find you have a way of of drafting properly because your car will kind of want to go into the middle. The forces at play will kind of give you a hint of what to do. So yeah, that is maybe the one to use. But then I overthink, but that's fine. Let's go. Yeah. So basically, when you find your community will basically you'll align and allow yourself to align. And don't worry if someone is giving more or if someone is giving less because everyone is giving what they can give and it's what's needed.
And
Because
again, if you're looking at it that way,
yeah,
even for a moment, then there's some judgment coming in
right.
because you're taking time to look at quantity and
Hmm.
it's immaterial. It doesn't matter because it's not transactional. So
Right.
what you put in is simply what you're doing because that's who you are. And whatever comes back is incidental. Or
Right.
hopefully it is, because when you get into transactions, that starts getting kind of murky. And I don't recommend a transactional approach to this. We don't do well with transactions as human beings because we value things in a very messed up kind of way, right? Like one person will value money above everything
Hmm.
else. And so they can do some pretty despicable things
Hmm.
in pursuit of money. Somebody else will value money for what they can use it for. And that might be a community minded thing. And another person's going to value it for what they can use it for
Right.
themselves, which may or may not be good for other people. Like there's a lot of different things. It's the same energy. Money is energy, right? It's not a bad thing. There's nothing attached to money. It's just numbers. It's
Yeah.
in some form of physical representation, or these days, more often than not, it's simply a number on a screen. And you feel one way or another about it. But we get very transactional about this stuff
Yeah.
and we quantify what the other person is doing in order to have as, or what we want for as, and what we're prepared to give, and so on. And it gets very imbalanced. Have you noticed that?
Yes. Actually, you know what? First of all, part of my brain is going like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, because like so much information is coming in and but it's excited. It's an excited, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. And I was just kind of, when we were talking about what you do help someone else, I kind of started making me think of the byproduct of your work is a benefit to someone else. And then it kind of made me think about, plants and stuff that produce oxygen. You know, plants aren't going, okay, you have to pay me to breathe or they'll hold their breath and, you're just going to breathe. And that's going to go out into the ecosystem and then we take advantage of it to help ourselves. In that sense, we don't go after the trees and say, hey, you have to breathe. The
Right.
ecosystem is just set up that way. So now everything works together. So I think that's the way to look at it. Our community is the community you'll build will be an ecosystem, and everything in the ecosystem feeds off itself. So there's no, I'm going to say, there's no looking at who's pulling their weight and who isn't pulling their weight because that's how ecosystems work. Everything is pulling its weight.
Again, human design.
Yeah.
Human design is actually an ecosystem.
Mm.
You have the majority would be by 1% more or less is generators. Then you have manifesting
Mm.
generators. Projectors are the next ones in line, and they basically oversee systems and how to make moving parts work better, but they don't bring energy. they bring organization.
Right.
And then after the projectors, you've got the manifestors, and they are a smaller, more, what's the word I'm looking for? Controversial group
Right.
who will innovate and initiate new things. And that
Right.
group is 8 or 9%. And then finally, you have reflectors, and they're basically a mirror. The
Right.
reflector is the canary in the mine.
Hmm.
If the reflector's not doing well, your environment is in trouble.
Right.
If your reflector is doing well, then your environment's great, but you only need 1% to show you what's going on, right? You need the bulk of the energy in the place where energy is going to be produced and people are going to be lifted up. You need a lesser amount of individuals to do the
Yes.
organizing, lesser than that to do the initiating and innovating. You see how that works? That whole thing is an ecosystem. Now, if you
Yes.
take any one group out, and the rest have a problem.
Hmm.
So it doesn't matter if you're one of the 34%, one of the 33%, the 21%, the 9%, like it doesn't matter. You all are needed. We are all needed, and we bring what the group require.
Right. And it's funny because although, you know, we're almost going to make it out of with no politics, but that
Okay,
explanation,
listen up, people. This is not me starting the politics
right?
this time.
But this explanation, this is part of why we end up having a hard time with our politics and with our elections, because it's true. The majority of people are generators. And you can even use that to say the majority of people are workers, so they produce.
Yeah,
Very
generators are
material
also
sense.
known as worker
Right.
bees.
Right. So they, in a very material sense, they produce. And so, you know, when that's the majority of what you see, you're thinking that's how everyone is. And you're thinking that's the only thing of value,
That was a mic drop right there. Boom.
right? And that's how, and this is why, and listen, personally, I never vote conservative. Doesn't mean anyone else can't. I want to be very clear on that. Conservatives are very important to any political ecosystem. Again, the generators, you do need things to be generated and produced. But what you have to remember when you're in that majority group is that all those little deviations that you see as bad are also essential. You just don't need as many of them.
Exactly, exactly. And that leads me very nicely to another community, which
Right.
is neurodivergent people.
Yes.
There are many, many more neurodivergent than there are neurotypical. And yet we still other people with
Mm.
neurodivergence. And if I see one more blasted, okay, I'm going to calm down what I want to say on that one. But if I see one more thing about autism being something that you have to avoid at all costs, it's a terrible thing, it's caused by vaccines, it's caused by
Mm-hmm.
this, that, and the other, I would like people to take a moment and just look, really look at what autism is. And if you don't know what it is, bloody well go and find out.
Mm.
Because here's the thing, autism, and I'm not talking about additional things, I'm talking about autism purely, right?
Right.
It is a different wiring of the brain. So your ability to focus is different. And often you can hyper focus on something that's interesting to a degree that nobody else can do. And what
Right.
that means is that person with the hyper focus can make massive transformations that nobody else can hope to do.
Mm-hmm.
So it's part, people with neurodivergency are actually part of the community that are essential. We need them right now to be doing their special thing, whatever that is, because neurotypical thinking got us to the state we're in now. We need a different way of thinking to get out of it again. And if you look at innovators throughout history, you will find neurodivergency. Do you think Leonardo da Vinci was a straight up normal guy? I think not.
You know what?
Now,
I'm gonna back that one with a story.
Einstein,
Yeah, but I'm gonna give you a story about Leonardo da Vinci. I just have to before we lose it. The first piece he ever did that got sold was the Medusa. He squished a bunch of bugs, basically. I think it was on a piece of wood, and he made the Medusa. And then his father sold it because of how good it was. And he was just a child when he did that. Just to
right?
give people an idea of neurodivergence and what the capacities are and what you can do. A bunch of squished bugs onto a piece of wood sold as the Medusa because that's how good it was. His father thought, hey, we can make money off of this and sold it.
Right? Look at Beethoven. How old was Beethoven? We could go into all of
Yeah.
this at length, but find me somebody who has made a massive difference in the world and was not neurodivergent. So here's the thing, when you're thinking of communities, if you want a healthy community around you, you better find you some neurodivergent people. And that could come in a lot of ways. It's not just autism, but autism is absolutely a valid part of our society. It's not something to be feared, avoided, don't have vaccines because of it. And by the way, please, dear God in heaven, the vaccines do not cause autism, okay? It's not a disease, but vaccines don't cause autism. They are generally given in childhood around the time
Right.
that signs of autism show up. It is correlation, not causation. This has been proven so many times.
Yeah.
I can't even wrap my frontal lobes around the fact that it's still out there and people still say it. But
Well,
neurodivergency is a part of who we are and what we need right now, and a number of witches, most witches probably, have some spiciness themselves. So, does that include me? Actually, yes, it does. Full disclaimer. There you go.
mm, well, yeah, I was gonna say I don't think you can really wield magic and be neurotypical. It's not that it's not possible. You have all the tools. It's just the mindset to deviate from the task of production and going into the realms you need to explore magic, I think doesn't occur naturally.
Well, it does, but it doesn't occur in a box. Maybe that's more it, because neurotypical thinking is very boxed in thinking, and it's a very boxed in view of what's possible
Yeah.
and what isn't. So, somebody like that is more likely to go for an organized religion that tells you what you can and can't do, and have a whole bunch of rules to follow because that feels quote unquote normal. Whereas, neurodivergency opens up a whole lot of possibilities. And one of the biggest obstacles for that person is other people and their judgments on what's wrong with you and so on and so
Yeah.
forth. And this is forcibly coming to mind right now. Elon Musk has recently said, and actually a few times said, I have Asperger's and that's why I'm like this. No, it isn't. He's an asshole and that's
Mm,
why he's like this. His neurodivergency has nothing to do with anything. That is not a personality trait, that is a way of thinking. So
mhm.
it causes him to be able to create rockets that hopefully will stop exploding. But
Right.
it doesn't mean he's a jerk. That is personality. That is not the way his brain's wired. So I just want that clarification out there because I see this going around now on the internet of, oh, he's like this because of this. And that outrages me more than any of the other stuff. It's
Mm,
like, whoa, that sets back the autism community like 40 years at
yeah.
least with that kind of comment. So please know that no, he's just a jerk.
Yeah. I was gonna say my nephew has Asperger's and he's not like that. Now, mind you, he has his moments where he wants to organize everything and have everything structured.
Yes, but that's not being a
Right.
jerk.
And the rest of us, and because the rest of us aren't like that, it's like herding cats to try to get us to be that way. But so poor kid, poor guy. He's not a kid, he's 27, but you know, he's busy trying to herd cats, but and the rest of us are like chaos beings. So mm,
Uh-huh. But there's nothing wrong with that.
yeah.
And he's not being a jerk. So
No. But that's what I mean, right? That's the closest to it he comes, but he doesn't step on anyone's toes. He doesn't step on anyone's boundaries because we all told him there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, and if it's really good, we'll follow it. You
Right.
know, we just kind of gave him some boundaries of this is how we are. But he's starting to learn why those boundaries exist. It was actually a funny side story because I don't know if he's listening, but
If you are, hi.
yeah. But this is a good story. This is pretty funny, and even he would laugh at it. When he was younger, right? Because he always wanted to take games we were playing and put new rules on it and try new stuff, which is fine. But we at one point we told him like, listen, us adults, we only have so much time off, and when we have time off, we kind of just want to relax, and we don't have to, and we don't necessarily always want to learn something new every time we get together. Sometimes we just want to mellow out and we just want to do the thing, right? And then
Mhm.
near the end of last year, when one of my younger nephews, who may or may not be on the spectrum, we don't know, was also saying, okay, let's do something new. And then he said, okay, listen, I've been busy for the last month. I just want to play this game and relax. And then I instinctively reached out, touched his forehead, and goes, are you okay?
Oh, that's
And then
funny.
we all had a good laugh at it because we were like, oh, yeah, now he knows what we're talking about. Yeah.
But all of these people are part of a healthy community
Right.
and they belong. They do not need to fit in. We are not wallpaper. We are not chameleons. None of those things. Fitting in it's for shoes. It's not for people. So let's not do the fitting in thing, but belonging. And if your community isn't diverse, and yeah, I said the D word, if
Mm.
it's not diverse, then in so many ways, then again, you're lacking dimension.
Yes. And that's the thing, right? Because diversity that's pushed right now, dare I say, is superficial diversity. Is the, oh, your skin is different from this person's skin, therefore
Oh, but
diversity. Right.
it's if you're female, if you're outside of certain age
Mm-hmm.
parameters, if your gender doesn't fit into
Mm-hmm.
the one that they think it ought to be. And at the moment, we even have, if you don't look soft and pudgy enough to be female, then
Right.
you must be transgender. Like they are losing the plot over here on this. Diversity means you're not an old straight white guy. That's what that means.
Yeah.
Anything else is
No,
diversity.
but I mean, even the other way around, where when people push for diversity, they're only looking skin deep. They're not looking past they're not looking to the person's values. They're not looking what the person can contribute in ways of new or different ideas. It's just oh, you're female, therefore you must be here because you're female, not because
If,
what you have to contribute as a female.
if they're doing it right,
Yes.
okay,
Done
so
right.
here's my little thing on diversity, equity, and
Right.
inclusion. If it's being done right, what it means is barriers that would be in your way because
Mhm.
some jerk thinks that females can't do things
Right.
as well as males. Like think of an intellectual job, right? One that you use your brain for. There is no reason why my brain isn't going to work as well as your brain.
Right.
Just because I'm female doesn't mean my brain is substandard. But there are many that believe that, and they all seem to be of a certain group. Anyway, the point being
Mhm.
that diversity, equity, and inclusion means that because you were female, black, Asian,
Mhm.
whatever, whatever, you are not held back from a
Right.
position that you can rightfully assume that you are qualified for. You are not stopped
Right.
because of those differences. It doesn't mean, if you're doing it right, it doesn't mean you get a boost up because of those differences. It doesn't mean that you are going to get a job that somebody else is better qualified for. And I think that's the most common
Well, yeah.
misunderstanding is you get something that somebody else is better qualified for. No, that's not what it means. It means you aren't held back,
Yes.
basically.
Well, and that's what I tell people, like, because I break it down kind of that way too. I say, listen, I says we all have our inherent biases, and there's nothing really like wrong with those biases per se, because some of them exist for our safety, So we try to be safe. And one of those things is we look for what's common to us, or what we think we have something in common with. I said, but unfortunately, when you're not, if you show up as a minority in a group, then you're not going to have that same built-in bias protection in the group. And kind of so when you have DEI, it gives an equally qualified person who doesn't match the bias to also have a chance. So same idea.
Exactly. Yeah.
It just
That's
protects
what
you from
that's
that
when you're doing
bias.
it right.
Hmm.
So it's you can use that in any number of things. Religion is another one, right? Now you know I'm going to go there. So if you're Jewish, you are currently being persecuted, whatever country you're in. There is a problem if you're Jewish. There's a massive problem if you're Israeli. And yet it's such a tiny population. There's only one country in the world that is predominantly Jewish. And yet it's a persecuted group. Then if you look at Muslims, people will have a certain approach. Catholics, they're going to look differently again. Evangelical, they'll make it different. So, we have these set of assumptions about people and what they can and can't do, and what they will and won't do, and what you permit them to do. And
Right.
here's something that, excuse me, you might not be aware of, but I lived in Malaysia for 4 years, and there is a fascinating strata in Malaysia.
Right.
Now, legally, by law, there is a discrimination in the country for Malay people. So if you are born Malay, it means you are
Right.
automatically Muslim. And you get loans at a much lower interest rate. You
Hmm.
will get into university, even if your grades aren't very good. If somebody wants to own a company there, they must have a Malay business partner, even if that person isn't doing anything. It's called Bumi Putra, which means of the land. So
Right.
if you're Malay, you basically get life handed to you on a plate, and it's pretty damned easy. And person listening to this, you want to look it up, go for it. It's in the laws of Malaysia, right? So they get the top level, if you will, of
Right.
everything they want. They could buy a house for less than anybody else does. It applies all over the place, and this is legal. Now, the next layer down is going to be Chinese people, Chinese
Right.
Malays, because they work so hard, because they study so hard, they make up for that lost ground because they're not Malay, but
Right.
they're still second. And then at the bottom of the pile, you have Indian Malay, and they are not afforded the same respect as everybody else. They're less likely to get into university and so on. Now, if ever there was a country that needed DEI, it's that one. Oh,
Yeah.
and foreigners really don't count, but they like them there for the money kind of thing. Um, you know,
Yeah.
but you are othered being
Mm.
there. So it's a society that people don't even know that's how it operates there. But I assure you it does. It's very, very different. And they've been doing this since I think the 60s with the whole Bumiputra thing.
Okay. Well, actually, it's actually very interesting. Like, just because you start seeing representation doesn't mean it solved all the problems.
It causes some.
Like, yeah, like to borrow from the States, right? Having Barack Obama in doesn't mean that all black people's lives have suddenly now gotten better.
Oh, so many of us make that mistake. Yep.
Right. Because I look like I feel weird bringing this one up because I've gone to a point where I don't like bringing it up anymore. But like as a French Canadian, even though we've had French Canadian prime ministers and people, French Canadians in power, that doesn't mean that the average French Canadian has power. It doesn't mean the average French Canadian has all the things or the cultural acceptance. It's like we're not like second class citizens per se,
Not
but
at
at the same
all.
token,
Quebec has a whole lot of clout,
yes,
for example.
Quebec has
Okay.
Quebec has.
But it's not
But
felt that way
well,
outside of
and if
Quebec.
you look at Canadian culture, right? When most people talk about Canadian culture, it's always the English side. And then occasionally Quebec
That's
gets thrown in.
that's not been my experience, I gotta say. So that's interesting. And I mean, I am Canadian as well,
Yeah.
and I've lived there for a number of years off and on, but that hasn't been my experience. But then I get a very different experience. So I think where we're going here is your own view of what's happening isn't
right,
necessarily the same as the person next to you, even because clearly I'm not
yeah,
born in Canada, I don't
right.
sound Canadian. I sound like a mix of whatever by now. Um,
Well, yeah,
because
I
I've
was gonna,
always been moving. So I am
yeah,
othered there as
yeah.
well.
Well, what I was gonna say is like I said, it's not that French Canadians are second-class citizens. There's no like official dogma about it.
Mm-mm.
But as you live in it, you start like when you live as it, like as a Jewish person, every once in a while, whereas the rest of the world is not necessarily seeing everything that's happening, because you're there, because you're that targeted thing, you get the experience.
Hmm.
Like, so
That's interesting. There's something here to investigate, I think.
yeah. Well, I'll give you this example. Okay. So my French teacher, who also a Jewish man, who came from because his family fled the Nazis.
Right.
He didn't get to do his bar mitzvah actually because
He
they
did
kind
or
of
he
said to him
didn't.
he didn't. He did it when he was 83.
Oh, good for him.
Yeah. So, but he got the ambassador, Canada's ambassador to the UN to come speak in our small town or our small
Okay.
city. Like we're considered remote, but so he gives the presentation in English first, and then he gives it in French. And like he brought us to go see, right? Because he brought the guys, so he brought us to go listen to the talk. And in front of us, we were like the class was sitting in one area, and in front of us was a woman. Oh, I can't believe he's speaking in French. Why do French people do this? Blah, blah. The whole time he's talking in French, she was, you know, going on to her friend about, oh, this is so terrible. Why is he speaking in French? And it's like, it's that kind of stuff that you kind of see when you're, like you don't see it in greater groups. You don't, like, you're not going to watch Parliament and hear someone badmouth French people and call them names, but you will still encounter the small groups of people wherever you go that still do those things. Even sometimes well-intentioned people do it accidentally.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
maybe
and
maybe that's like the Canadian version of. Sorry for anybody with this name, but a Canadian version of a Karen.
oh, absolutely.
You know.
But I'm just saying, like, right, like, because we're talking about community, right? You end up othering people, even though there's no official policy for othering people.
I
Like,
think that might be. I think that might be where what we've been talking about
yeah,
needs to go, is watching out for othering people and othering yourself. Ooh, that's actually a
yeah,
big one because you don't have to shove it in everybody's face
right,
that you're different. It's
right.
okay if they see that you are. There's kind of a line to tread there, I think, and
Well,
I'm
there
not
is.
even sure where I'm going with it, other than to say, don't other yourself and don't other others.
Well, so yeah, because I was going to
Ideally,
bring that up,
at
right?
least it's something to work toward.
Because there was a time in my life where I would speak French to everybody because I figured we're in Canada. You learn French for free in school. I was being a dick, basically. I was like, you learned French as well in school. I had to learn English. The least you can do is learn French, right? When it's free. When I had to learn it because culturally, I'm limited if I don't learn it, right? So I was a bit of a dick about it. But and that does contribute to people having a bad experience. Like I always tell people, you don't have to be an ambassador for your minority group, but if the people encountering you have a good experience, it makes it easier for other people who come behind you,
Well, I just want to point out that if you go to Montreal,
right?
they assume that they get that you speak English as a first language.
Right.
Even if you speak French, they will give
Yes.
you restaurants, they will give you a menu that costs more money than the
Yes.
exact same thing in French. And you speak French and they'll
Yes.
respond to you in English because my kids both speak French
Yeah.
and fluently. And the one boy, his girlfriend lives in Quebec.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll go out and he gets this every time. And it's
Yes.
like,
And that's why you'll hear me say that French people piss me off because we know what it's like and we should be doing better. Remember when I had talked about
all
the
right.
whole French Canadians should be the bridge between the Indigenous people of Canada and the government of Canada because we know what it's like to be in both positions, but we don't.
And
Yeah.
I wonder if that's some of the I experienced it, therefore it's okay for you to experience it mentality. Because
Yeah.
that's been coming up a lot
Right.
lately, right?
As my father would say, it's good enough for me, it's good enough for you.
Right. And that's a very limiting
Yes.
approach.
Right. So that's what like so this is where it's important about culture, right? Our communities, because one, yes, don't other yourself, don't be a dick like I was, but but also don't other people just because they're different from you at the same time. But don't other
Yeah,
yourself, like you said.
yeah. I think it sounds like we're lecturing a lot here. I kind of feel like I've got my lecture hat on, but it but
Well,
it's really laying out sort of some suggestions for, okay, there's something you're going to trip over there, and by the way, that's a rock, and whoops, there's a pothole,
yeah,
and we're just trying to draw paint lines around those so that you don't have to trip on them. I mean, if you want to go head on and do that, then of course it's your thing, it's your responsibility. But I think a lot of what we're coming up with right now is just saying, hey, look, this is what we've seen,
yeah,
noted, done, tried not to do,
hmm
etc. And hey, here's a heads up.
right.
Because you don't really necessarily know all of those things, and
Well,
we've learned them the hard way, right?
yeah, well, that's what I mean, right? When you're in the minority, like I mean, I don't even touch on the fact that some people recognize I have indigenous ancestry and some people don't. So sometimes when I get discriminated against, like for some things, like I was kicked out of a store one time, and especially back in those days, I had really long hair. So it was like, did I just get nailed for, someone thought I was native and therefore they hate native people to kick me out, or is it my accent, or is it? And that's overthinking it, but like sometimes things happen and you don't know why.
But
But
you were also othering yourself and trying to
yes,
decide which way to do that,
right,
right? Is it because of this, or this? Which one will I pick? Maybe
yeah.
it's all of them. And
Well,
maybe
at the time, I wasn't thinking that way, but later on, I'm like, well, hold on, did I miss out on opportunities? Did certain things happen because I didn't recognize there might have been another ring when I didn't realize it? Or, yeah, anyways, yeah, like, but it's community, right? And when you start, not othering, that's not the word I'm looking for. When you start picking and choosing who has more value, is that the word I'm looking for?
judgment, yeah.
Yeah.
When you start
Instead of,
placing numbers on people or
right.
importance on people.
Yes. Instead of accepting what people have to actually offer and making judgments without seeing what the person actually has to offer, that's what I'm looking for. When your community comes to you, your tribe comes to you, don't like let people show
Be
their
open.
value.
Be open to seeing
Yeah.
what's possible.
Yes.
You know,
So
that's
possibilities.
mhm.
Nothing stops you more than not being curious.
Or yourself, really.
Yeah.
And that's where we get caught up in our own story with, you know, categorizing ourselves in various ways,
Yeah.
and that brings limits, right? I,
hmm
I, I'm really getting this thing of the path, and then there's all this stuff strewn over it, and you can either breeze on past and it'll just disappear, or
Yes.
you can stop and pick them all up and carry all that stuff,
Right.
and it'll slow down your progress. It's kind of what I'm getting, but I don't know how useful this is for people because it feels to me like we went way off on a tangent, but
Yeah, but
I
it's
don't
been
know.
pushed like because I've been what's the word I'm looking for? I was prodded down this path.
No, not. I'm
So
sure
there's
it's
got to
all
be
good.
something
It's
somewhere that it matters.
I think it does. It's just like I noticed as I'm talking that I'm sounding terribly lecture-y, and I don't like that. And I'm wondering, why the hell does this keep coming up? Could you stop now? And I have this voice in the back saying, could you not lecture? But I
Mhm.
don't know. Somehow that's just what needed to be said. So if anybody doesn't like the lecturing tone, I
Yeah.
do apologize, but somehow it was required.
All right. Yeah, I'm being told it's fine now. We've done what we needed to do with it.
Okay, good. Because it really doesn't sit comfortably with me to do the whole lecture thing. Like it felt weird.
Yeah, it's actually interesting because they're all sitting around looking at me. All right.
Expectations are on you then.
Yeah. So I'm not at a loss, but I'm at a loss. There's way more still to touch on community. But I think the big part of it is just be open-minded to who comes to you. Don't, yeah, be curious. Don't pass judgment on people coming to you. Your community will reveal itself, especially if you're open to it. But don't let yourself get in your own way. Don't cut off your nose to spite your face. Don't do all those things that'll get you in the way of doing.
Clear intention for the community. What
Yes,
what do you want the community for and for the community? Like
right.
what's the purpose? What's the
Yes.
point?
Onto that again. Just like we said last week, your relationship with the spirits you work with, what do you give them and what can you also do? How can you reciprocate,
Yeah.
at the same time? And it's the same thing with your community. Because it's funny how these two episodes really work together. But it was funny too because episode 8 of season 3, Power, we then went to season 4, and then we basically started talking about spells and getting into doing magic and stuff like that, how it's available, how it's going to be available. So the episodes linked are starting to really link themselves up pretty good.
Nice.
So not cutting it. One more thing. So this is for the listeners. Really start paying attention to how this podcast is going to work, is being rolled out right now, and how the topics are coming, how they're ordered, everything that's being said within them, which you should do when you're listening, but really start to keep an eye on it. Really listen. Listen multiple times if you have to really get the gist of it. Yeah. So what I just got in my head was you're being handed gold right now.
Okay.
If we do so, well, I'm not saying it, I'm channeling it. So no, I guess we're doing, yeah. I
This
almost
is why
don't want
we're a
to,
niche. This is why we're a niche
yeah,
podcast, you know?
but I almost kind of don't want to record saying the next thing, but I'm going to say it anyways. That's the value of this podcast. This is what it exists for. This is the producers of the show is what they're trying to get at. We're dispensing stuff from the spirit world for people to really start to learn from. And my voice kind of went down there, but it's this is to listen to. This is to be listened to be digested, to be absorbed. Yeah,
There must be some nutrition in it,
right.
some
Well,
nourishment in there somewhere.
oddly enough, I took a nap before doing this podcast, and one of the dreams I had was when I was saying, your community can nourish you and stuff like that. One of the things was the food itself was not necessarily what I would consider the most nutritious. It was like a dessert, almost like a kind of like a donut, not a donut, something like that. But anyways, but it held power and it held wisdom, and it was given as a gift from actually I want to say Hecate,
Interesting.
and that
Hmm.
was and then I woke up.
Isn't that always the way?
Yeah, well, because it had that intensity when
Right.
the right the dessert box was opened from the bakery. There were these kind of cakes. I want to say honey and cream on it for flavor and stuff. So ambrosia, anybody? But yeah, and then that's what kind
Maybe
of
it's from the land of milk and honey, huh?
maybe, but the intensity of it, of that, what the gift meant, woke me up. So, huh, and that's where the episode ends on that imagery,
Cool. In my mind, of course, having the the things that it has in it
right?
went straight to land of milk and
Yes,
honey, manna from heaven,
yes,
etc., because
yeah,
that's some conditioning, right?
yes. Now, listeners, I almost want to use swear words,
Okay, we're getting double fingers on this, guys. Not two
right?
fingers on one hand, but
Two,
normally Danielle points with one finger. This time,
normally.
one finger on each hand. Double whammy.
Okay, these are the words I'm getting, and then we'll do our outro. Eat the fucking cake.
Okay.
So take of that what you will. Hecate saying, eat the fucking cake. So we described it. We kind of gave our opinion on it. Let that digest with you guys listening. And once again, I'm Daniel Dubois.
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
Until next time.
Until next time.